Hello, thank you for joining me today. Could you please tell us your name?
I am Virender Kumar Kaul.
Thank you for offering to share your story with me. During this interview, if you wish to take a break or stop anytime, please let me know. If you do not wish to answer a question or talk about a certain topic, please let me know. I am honored to record your story and appreciate your participation in this project. Could you please tell me how old you are right now?
I am 75 years old at present.
Which place were you born in Kashmir?
I was born in Srinagar. Ranawari was the locality where we used to live, where I was born.
What was your family's occupation or main source of livelihood when you lived in Kashmir?
In my lifetime, main source of livelihood has been always a government job, from my father to my brothers to myself.
Could you please elaborate on what they used to do and what you used to do?
My father was in the civil services of Kashmir government, and I personally had done a training in mountaineering and skiing with the Indian Institute of Skiing and Mountaineering in Gulmarg. My elder brother was a doctor, and my another brother was working with the PWD department of the J&K government.
Can you describe your lifestyle in Kashmir before you had to leave?
Our lifestyle was very comfortable lifestyle. We're a middle class family, upper middle class family before migration, and we used to have lived at several places in Kashmir Valley in my lifetime, from Ranawari to Dal Gate, which is a famous another place in Kashmir Valley, then from Dal Gate to Jawahar Nagar and Jawahar Nagar to Bemina.
Okay. So what was your daily life like in Kashmir?
My daily life was a very hectic life when I was working, because I used to be posted. I was posted in Gulmarg, and another brother was posted in various localities from time to time because he was in the medical services, and another brother was also posted from place to place, but all in Kashmir Valley itself.
Alright. Can you also describe the kind of community you lived in? I know you mentioned you lived in various locations, but can you describe maybe one of the neighborhoods that you used to live in?
Well, when we were in Ranawari, it was mostly a Pandit dominated locality. Then in Dalgate, it was a Muslim dominated locality. Jawahar Nagar was a mix of both Muslims and Kashmiri Pandits. And Bemna, where we were living last, was mostly dominated by the Muslim population.
So you attended school in Kashmir. How was your school life like, and where did you study?
I studied in CMS Biscuit School, which was one of the most famous schools of its own time in whole of northern India, and I studied there and completed my 10th class there. After that, I went to the Amar Singh College for my degree course, but before that, I went for a training in the Indian Institute of Skiing and Mountaineering for skiing and mountaineering courses, and joined there as an instructor in the Government of India services.
So you were a skier and mountaineer. What made you choose that path instead of higher education or academia?
One was my school, which was a very active school because we used to have a lot of games like mountaineering. We used to go to the mountain peaks. We would be very active in water sports and water activities like boating, rowing and all those things. So that was one background. Second was, it was a very good opportunity, and this advertisement which came from the Minister of Tourism, Government of India, wanted to select 15 instructors on all India basis, and I applied and I got selected in that ultimately.
So, um, I know you were a skier and mountaineer and you had to spend a lot of time in Gulmarg. So, do you have any memories or interesting stories from your time in Gulmarg?
Gulmarg was a very comfortable place. It was a tough place, but comfortable from the point of view that you were busy from morning till evening. Like skiing was a full-time job, and in summers we would be doing water skiing and trekking and mountaineering courses in various places in Kashmir Valley. So it was a continuously hectic life and very promising life, technically speaking.
So, do you have, because Gulmarg was not like Srinagar, it wasn't a city, it still isn't. Do you have any stories or interesting things that you experienced over there?
Yes, Gulmarg was a very lonely place in a way. When we joined there for the training, there used to be only except army, crows and we, nobody else. So initial 2 years it was very lonely, but ultimately after doing the training for 2 years, the training exceeded by another 1.5 years. So in those 3.5 years we were professionally trained as both mountaineers and skiers, and besides that even water skiing and this sailing extra was also taught, which on a very professional scales.
So, how long did you work in, like, how long did you work as a skier and mountaineer in Gulmarg?
I was in Gulmarg from 1968, rather 1969 we can say, 1969 till 1990 April. First week of April I was in Gulmarg. That is roughly about 22 years.
Can you share some of your fondest memories of life in Kashmir?
My fondest memory of life in Kashmir was well, you can call on my job in Gulmarg, which used to give me a lot of pleasure, because I used to meet lot many foreign tourists, lot many Indian tourists, all well established people, because it's being a sport which is very costly sport. So selected people would initially come. Of course afterwards we started courses for youth and all that, and then lot many children from different parts of India started coming in, which increased the volume of skiing there, and that was one of the best part of my life.
What were some traditions or cultural practices that you and your family followed in Kashmir? Or any local festivals or events that you remember and enjoyed? What were they like?
We used to have our own religious festivals which were very important for us as a family. Like Shivratri was the most important festival, followed by Janmashtami, Diwali, and so on. But we used to celebrate Eid and other things also with our Muslim friends and all that, consistently at a very grand scale.
Do you remember any specific places in Kashmir that held a special significance for you as a child or even as an adult?
As a child and adult, one was Kheer Bhavani, which is Mata's temple. That was very important and had a very special significance for me and my family as a whole. Then besides that, gardens of Kashmir, we used to frequently visit them. Then we would frequently visit other small hill stations like Pahalgam and other places. They held a very significant part in our life, whole of the family's life, in fact, you can say.
So, what do you miss most about Kashmir?
Well, two most important things what I have missed, two most important. One is I miss the climate of Kashmir, which I didn't find anywhere else, because that is a specific climate. And secondly, what I missed was the good old memories, good old times we used to have there as a community, as a Kashmiri Pandit community, as a culture of Kashmiris as a whole.
So, how did leaving Kashmir affect you and your family? I know you mentioned the temperature was one of the things, but could you
Two things what affected me and my family in general and me in personally also. One was that when we left Kashmir, we had to leave everything behind. We didn't have anything, virtually anything except few clothes of ours. And besides that, I was in the process of making a home there. So whatever money we had as a family, all the three brothers, we had put that in construction of our houses, and we were virtually penniless at that time as far as cash is concerned. So when we migrated, so it was a very, very hard time because we didn't have any resources to bank on at that time. So it was simply trying to manage to get salary from the government on what we survived. And that's exactly how we survived for complete afterwards, because everything in Kashmir was totally lost, including those three houses which are still there and being used by the CRPF as a bunkers.
So, many Kashmiri Pandit families moved to Jammu, Delhi, parts in the south and various other places after the migration. So could you please tell us about what the immediate hardships and challenges your family faced, and where did you relocate to initially and then where did you go later? And what were the challenges, or how were you treated in Jammu, Delhi, etc.?
Well, we initially migrated to Jammu because that was the shortest distance to go to. In Jammu, we tried to find some accommodation. It was very, very difficult, but managed a little bit of accommodation ultimately. All the three brothers had to live then separately because of we couldn't find such accommodation where we could live all together. Then after that, I stayed in Jammu for about 9 years. My other brothers lived there beyond that also. Then in 99 I came to Delhi because my government job was, my headquarters was Delhi, so I had to come to Delhi. And then I worked in the Ministry of Tourism itself. So from that time till now, I think we got stabilized and we lived a slightly better life. Of course, we had our problems in Delhi also. We had purchased a flat and all that. Even that thing did not materialize from last 15 years. That flat has not been given by the builder to us.
So, when you had to relocate temporarily to Jammu, how were the people over there? Were they accepting?
Well, Jammu people generally were cooperative, but then they had their own limitations. Jammu was not that big a city which could just take the migration of 4 to 5 lakh Kashmiri Pandits. So, roughly about 1.5 lakh Kashmiri Pandits did stay in Jammu, but that is what made accommodation and all that very, very difficult. So people had to live in the tents and all that. Of course, we did not live in tents and all that. We managed our accommodation somehow, but others had to live in tents and all that. And some are even living today in tents.
So, could you talk more about how this move affected your like education, work, or daily life? So, like your son's education or your work and daily life. Even as you had mentioned, you used to live in a joint family, and I'm guessing it was like that for a lot of decades. But then in Jammu, you couldn't find an accommodation which could house the entire family. So, like, how did leaving change different aspects of your life?
Whole lifestyle of ours changed after that. Lifestyle in this sense, then we became sort of nuclear families, like my own family, just three of us, then my other brother, three of them, another brother with my mother, about five of them. So that is how it changed, number one. Number two, in Jammu also, we had to fight initially because we didn't have, I told you, we didn't have any cash or anything left with us in our banks and all that, unfortunately, because we were making the house. So we had to live on salary. So the biggest struggle for another 2 to 3 years was how to manage salary from the government on day-to-day basis, on month-to-month basis. But ultimately it was managed, and government did start giving us the salaries and all that on regular basis. And then afterwards it was just living at another place. Of course, missed Kashmir Valley. We were hard pressed. My mother missed it more. My family missed it. My wife and Winnie missed it. Winnie's education got affected. That is, he had to go to a school in the afternoons instead of in the morning in a 45 degrees, 46-degree temperature when compared to Kashmir's 30-degree or 25-degree temperature. So he also suffered a lot on part of educational qualification, but he also ultimately did manage and adjusted himself completely.
So, what were, I know you mentioned some earlier also, but what were some challenges that you faced in adjusting to this new life?
Challenges were just that actually one had to, at the age of 40 plus age, one had to make one's own home, rather from frying pan to your thali, to a cup, to saucer, to clothes, to towels, to beddings, everything was to be made afresh. So that was one very, very big challenge, to build a house, build a home of once again. And building a home from scratch at the age of 40-45 is a very, very difficult job for anybody when financial conditions are not very, very favorable. So, but myself, my wife and my son, we did a very, very hard work, and we established a home slowly and slowly at present, which is very, very comfortable home.
So, I know like the temperature and climate of Kashmir is very different from other places like Jammu and Delhi. Like in Jammu and Delhi, it goes to 45, 46 degrees, but in Kashmir, even in summers, it's cooler. So, did you or your family or like anyone you know ever experience any health complications or like adverse effects because of the weather
Yes,
and the climate?
definitely, definitely. Climate has affected the family. Even in fact, my wife, she got affected by this change. She ultimately developed cancer because of this very hardship, because life was not so smooth. It was very, very tough. So she developed cancer and ultimately expired because of that. And another brother of mine, he got mentally disturbed, and he was a psychiatric patient. He also died because of that psychiatric complication. And that was all because of the migration and effects of our changing the place from Kashmir Valley to India.
Even though it's been more than 30 years, Do you feel a sense of longing to return to Kashmir? Can you elaborate on your feelings regarding the subject of going back?
Well, after certain time of my life, yes, I personally was very eager. I was yearning to go back. Every year we used to think next year we'll be going back, next year we'll be going back. But a stage came when it became apparent that it is not possible to go back now because whole system had changed. Government and government policies were not in favor of that. That is just to kill our curiosity. But there is no eagerness now to live in Kashmir as a permanent station there. No, I don't have that feeling.
What do you hope for the future of Kashmir?
Well, Kashmir as it is progressing at present, but future nobody can predict. As long as religions keep on playing a part in lives of the people, it is very, very difficult to say what, at what time, what day, how people will react in a volatile situation.
Those were the end of my questions. Thank you so much for participating and sharing your story with us. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we end?
I don't think anything particular except this that as on today, Kashmiri Pandits are doing fairly well, majority of them. There are some minuscule minorities who need still some help. I think as a society, as a Kashmiri Pandit society, we should try to evolve and help those people who are still in distress.
Okay. Thank you so much.